Welcome to Veterans Archives, where we preserve the stories of our nation's heroes in their own words and their own voices. Here we go. Today is February 16th, 2023, and I am talking with Gary Rossi, who served in the United States Navy. So Gary, we'll just start out at the beginning and kind of talk about when and where you were born.
I was born in Richmond, California, March 19th, 1956.
All right, so always in California then, it sounds like, or at least the
Yes.
most part of
Yep.
your life. Well, very good. And what was it like growing up for you?
My father was an electrician. My mom, of course, was a homemaker. He was always working, but they provided very well for us. Then in 1968, El Cerrito and Richmond, the demographics changed a lot. So we moved up to the Napa Valley because that's where my mother's family or their family was relocated to from the Bay Area. Both families lived in the Bay Area. They moved up to Napa Valley. My grandfather had electrical contracting business. He sold it and he bought 100 acres in the Napa Valley. So they relocated in 1968, went to a Catholic elementary school to the eighth grade, then went to a Catholic high school, and then went off to the Naval Academy.
All right. So I want to back up just a little bit and talk about your
Sure.
parents. So do you have like a favorite memory of your father? I know he worked a lot, but do you have like a favorite memory of him?
I think the most memorable thing was he played baseball in high school. He started on the varsity as a freshman. It was at Old Cerrito High School. And he actually, after he got out of the Navy, he served 2 years in the Navy, and he played ball the entire time in the Navy. And he spent 2 weeks at Dodgers training camp. And he figured that as a journeyman electrician, he would make more money than as a baseball player in 1956.
Probably a good call.
Yeah. Anyway, they got me involved in baseball, and I wasn't very good at baseball. And we had a coach. The coach made me play catcher. And one game we lost, if I remember correctly, I forget, 31-0, 33-0. Oh, and I don't know if I can't remember now. I'm heck. But somehow the coach quit and my dad took over. And that 33 loss was at the beginning of the season. Well, from the time my father took over and showed us what to do, and we didn't play, it wasn't a rubber coated, it was a real hard ball. And we actually went undefeated the second half of the season. And I think, if I remember correctly, because for some reason the rules were the first half really didn't count, the second half counted, and we were the league champs. So, he worked really hard with all of us to improve our skills. And of course, after the 31-0 trouncing that I was playing catcher, he didn't put me behind the plate anymore. I think I played from then on. I played second base.
Well, and I think
that was probably a really good position for me.
And I think that ties into the Navy SEALs adage that there are no poor teams, just maybe poor leaders.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Gary, that's kind of the same question for your mother. What's maybe one of your favorite memories of your mother?
She worked for a short period of time before they got married for the FBI, and she was a photographer. And she had an old speed graphic. And I think one of the memories uh, was her showing me how to use that speed graphic camera. You know, the old speed graphic with the billows. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. So, did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have one brother and one sister.
All right. And were they older, younger?
I'm the oldest in the family. My sister is about 14 months younger than I am. And then my brother's 13 years younger than I am.
All right. So, yeah, probably not a lot of interaction between you and your brother that would be like brother to brother, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, good. So we talked about you went to school, and then you went to the Naval Academy. Can you talk a little bit about how you got there? Now, I know from experience in my family, going to any of the academies it takes a little bit of work to get there. So how did all that come together for you?
You know, I did pretty well at school. I think I out of high school I had a 3.5. And then since we moved up to Napa, it's very agriculturally oriented back then. Right now it's all wine, but we got involved in 4-H. So I did a lot of different things in 4-H. One of my quote projects was citizenship. I was a county all-star, and was involved with organizing the California State Leadership Conference and stuff like that. So, that's one thing that the academies do. They look for the overall rounded individual. I also swam from the time I was 5 until high school. I played football my freshman year. And I was fairly athletic, so I think that contributed to it. Um, and then, of course, the first year right out of high school, I got a congressional nomination. And in California, it's different than some of the southern states. California is basically a competitive state, as they call it, whereas the congressman will tell the academy, hey, here's a list. Gary might be the number one choice, but if you see someone else in that list that fits the bill, please select them. Whereas in Alabama or South Carolina, some of those states will go and say, okay, no, my nomination is, and this is the person I want nominated. So after the first year, it's kind of starting of the challenges that I've had in my life, is that I found out that I was not going to be accepted in our local paper, that somebody else had been selected.
Well, so they didn't call you, you got to read about
No.
it.
Yeah.
So then what?
Whereas, well, then, I was very close with my blue and gold officer, and he got to be a very good friend. And, he said, okay, at that time, there were probably only a few select prep schools, the Naval Academy prep being one. But there's this other one that he personally knew the owner of, and it was in Mound, Minnesota. So of course, we paid to go to the prep school. I took the ACT and SAT test, I forget, 16, 17, 18 times. And at that time, you could mix and match between an SAT English score or an ACT math score. So I did very well on those. And then that year, I got not only a congressional nomination, I got a senatorial nomination as well. And normally when you get both of those, you're pretty much a shoe-in for getting an appointment to the academy. And I got appointed to the class of 1979.
Well, so I want to hear about, it's a lot of work to get there. And so what was it like the first moment you walked through the gates and you're there? What was that like for you?
I think I got, if I remember correctly, what I remember is I got there late afternoon and they were, and it was, matter of fact, I was doing some notes, and our indoctrination, the I Day, as we call it, was July 7th, 1975. And I got there the night before, and they put us up, those of us that got there uh, before, they put us up, I believe, in the eighth wing. And I was on 8-4, the eighth wing, fourth floor. And I was looking over the academy grounds, and I don't know if somebody was starting the yelling, and I'm going, what the heck did I get myself into?
I think that's a common question that many military people have asked themselves at least once in their careers. So what was indoctrination day like?
Oh, it was just, it was just the barrage, getting a haircut, getting uniforms, getting books, all kinds of stuff. And it was nonstop. They gave you a little book, and I still have my reef points somewhere. But it's basically knowing all about the United States Navy, knowing all about the Marine Corps, knowing who John Paul Jones was, and I mean, just all the ministrivia of the stuff, different sayings, general orders. I mean, you name it, it was there.
And someone was going to ask you about it, right?
And somebody was going to ask you about it.
Yes, and I know the pain of not knowing those answers sometimes. I've experienced that. So what was that? What was that first year like then for you at the academy? And the kind of a follow up to that question is, I know that's very competitive in that they do have kind of a high dropout rate. So what was that like?
Like I said, I had a 3.5. It was Catholic high school, college prep curriculum, and I thought I was fairly prepared. Going through prep school, that I think that was a good thing also for just growing up one more year of experience. But boy, was I rudely awakened, because first semester I got a 1.36, and I was going to an academic board. And when you go before an academic board, you have three rooms. One room where you wait, then there's a little hallway, and there's green and red lights up above the doorway. And then there's a hallway that you go into, little passageway, and then there's another door with another set of lights, green and red lights. And then on the other side, in the other room, is a very long table with one chair at the far end, and then the academic board is at the other end. But anyway, the first semester, and I played 150-pound football. And I was waiting. I forget what light signaled that you had to go in the hallway. Anyway, that light came on. Went in the hallway, and then I'm just waiting there. Okay, what am I going to say? I've been working hard. I've gone through my professor's office hours. I've done everything I think I could do, and I'm just not getting it for some reason. Well, the light that would tell me to go and open the next door never came on. Basically, somebody came through the door, said, "You're lucky, turn around and get the heck out of here." And then
So you never actually went through the board.
Never went through the board. Second semester, I went from a 1.36 to a 1.45, and I didn't even go down to the academic board. I never even got in the waiting room. So, because, they saw some progress. The company officer that I had was very supportive. And, they knew I'd do okay.
Well, did you make some good friends while you were there, and maybe some people that you still stay in contact with?
Oh yeah, I've got all of my. There's, you know what? That's one thing I did, and probably why I do a lot of networking now. Is there's not too many of my classmates that I don't know. But I mean, the classmates that I had in my company, I was in 19th company. I constantly talk to them. We have it's really sad as we get older, we start losing people along the way. Uh, and after I got out, I started coaching girls soccer at a high school, brand new high school in San Diego, and was going to a tournament. And normally we get an email once a month from our class president saying how everything's going. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of this month, and this was I got back from the first day of the tournament games on a Friday night. And I see this email and I go, what the heck is going on? Because we never get any emails out of thing unless something bad has happened. Well, one of my classmates and a friend, Tom Kwiatkowski, passed away. And he and I worked at Booz Allen, and so did Tom. And we overlapped our period at Booz by about 6 months. And we go and we meet in the morning, get a Jamba Juice, get a coffee, meet up at lunch, not every day, but over the course of the time. And then after I left Booz Allen, we kind of just lost track of each other. So when I saw this, and then I didn't realize that Tom lived in Rancho Bernardo and I lived in Rancho Penasquitos. So was at the game on Saturday. His funeral was on that Saturday, pouring down rain. I was in one of my suits. Told the girls, don't expect me to be in a suit every game. Soaking wet, and I beat feet up to the funeral. And there's probably about 13 of my classmates. And we're sitting there talking, and we're saying, why is it there's only 2 times in our lifetime that we get together? Army Navy game or homecoming game, and then when one of us passes away. And that was right at the time that LinkedIn and Facebook, I think, were starting to kick off. And we just said, you know what? We need to keep in touch with each other. We may not see each other in person, but at least we can keep track of each other. So we've created a Facebook page for the class at USNA class of 79. And then I started reaching out to everybody in my yearbook to get connected. So we keep track of people.
Oh, that's
And it was
excellent.
just, yeah. But like my company mates, Kevin Boyd, Dave Bethel, John Withers, Chuck Dixon, all these guys were in my company, and we constantly keep in touch.
Well, I think that's really good. I think for the most part, that keeps you young. I know I still have people that I stay in contact with from my days in the military. I want to go back to the academy, though. We could probably talk about that for a couple of hours, but I'm just curious. Like, is there like when you think about the academy, or you're talking to someone about the academy, is there like a particular story or something that happened there that you really like to share that really just kind of sticks in your mind?
Hmm. I think the one thing I use it as my claim to fame. Uh, we had in 150-pound football, because I was so academically superb with that 136 and 145. I figured that I shouldn't probably play football my sophomore and junior year, but I went back to play 150s. My freshman year, I was an offensive guard. Uh, Senior year, I decided that I really did not want to go back to offensive guard, and I wanted to hit people. So I went out for the defensive end position, and I had 3 of my classmates that were ahead of me. And I ended up and I probably had, 150s is just one you just have one varsity team and that's it. You don't have a JV team. It's just you make it. And I think there's probably about, I want to say there were like 300 to 400 guys trying out for 60 slots. So you had to be pretty competitive. Anyway, I was the fourth string defensive end. And, we only have 6 games. We play Army, of course, and then we play Princeton, Penn, Cornell, maybe Rutgers, and then Navy. So there's only six teams. So you'll play 5 games. And depending on the year, sometimes you travel 3 games, sometimes you travel 2 games. Well, my teammates used to give me always a bad time about I couldn't catch the football. So finally it was a home game. We all suited up and we were winning fairly handily. And I got to go in. And we had backed them up on the, 3-yard line. And my role as the offside defensive end was take 3 steps, which put me in the end zone, and make sure I keep an eye on the quarterback. Well, they had a running back as a safety valve, and the quarterback dropped back to pass. He got pressure, and he did not see me, so he didn't lob the ball. And it was like he threw it right to me. I was already in the end zone. My teammates started yelling and screaming, not because I scored a touchdown, just because I caught the ball. And that's what they were saying. Oh my God, Rossi caught a football. So I think, there's a lot of good memories that we had. Army-Navy game all the time was just a phenomenal experience. I majored I got a degree in oceanography. And I had some great profs. Coach Tracy, he was my fluid physics prof. We'd get to class in the morning, first semester, and I'd fall asleep in the front row. So, and I'd try to stay awake and I'd fall asleep again. And he was really good about it. Second semester, I'd get him again. And I'm going to turn over a new leaf. We have it's not an overcoat, but we call it a reefer because it's just a half jacket. Mm-hmm. Take off my hat, take off my gloves, take off my reefer, and I'm there ready to go. And he looks at me and doesn't say anything. And he just stands in front of the class and doesn't say. I'm going, okay, so when are we going to start class? And finally, about 5 minutes later, he looks at me and goes, Midshipman Rossi, I am not going to start class until you fall asleep, because that is your modus operandi. And I go, Professor Tracy, you know what? I can do that. I have no problem doing that. So those are the 2 best memories that I have. There's a lot of other ones too.
What great memories. In what was graduation day like for you then? Because that's a long 4 years.
You know what? When everybody asks me about my background, I say I have a checkered past.
Oh.
I never graduated. I had the terminal case of the not so smarts my senior year. In our company, we had guys that went right by the book. And we had guys that just did everything they could that wasn't by the book. And I kind of, for 3 years, actually 3.5 years, went right down the middle. Finally, because my sense of success at the Naval Academy was to be a midshipman officer, company commander, battalion commander, battalion subcommander, something like that. Well, that never came to fruition. So I basically said, okay, I'm going to have fun my last semester. Service selection came around. I was slated to go Navy Air and go to flight school. I was supposed to go to Moffett Field in California for 6 months and then go to Pensacola, Florida. Well, we were caught. We went out to a local bar, brought beer back in. Basically, it came down to we lied about it, got caught, and then we went through an honor board, and they recommended separation. The superintendent recommended separation to the Department of the Navy, and they held me through graduation. I got separated 14th of August of 1979. While I was awaiting that, there was a lieutenant from SEAL Team 1, George Berry, and he and I got to be, I joke that George and I became friends. He made me the head degenerate in charge of all the degenerates that were awaiting some kind of adjudication. And he goes, Gary, if you don't get what you want, then let me know. And I said, okay. So I thought, stupid me, I've got a degree in oceanography. There's only two oceanographic vessels in the United States Navy. So I figured I could get that. Now, you're getting kicked out of the Naval Academy. You're going to be undesignated seaman. You're going to go somewhere haze gray and underway and chip paint. And when I got separated, I went to Bowling Air Force Base, and I was the 7th floor janitor. And I worked out. I mean, I had my floor, I cleaned the bathrooms, I vacuumed the hallways. My floor always looked great. And then I would work out for the rest of the afternoon, go swimming, whatever. I get orders. And there was a master chief, I believe he was a bosun's mate master chief. Anyway, I forget how he called me down to his office, and he showed me the orders. And it was to an ammunition ship in Earl, New Jersey, and I was an undesignated seaman. And I looked at him, and I looked at those things, and I said, those are going to change, Master Chief. He starts laughing at me. I said, okay. Left his office, got on a payphone, and called George. George, help, get me out of this. And I believe it was like a Thursday. George says, okay, Thursday afternoon, give me some time tomorrow, and I'll get back to you. Monday, I believe I went and got I went across to the Navy Yard and got my PP and O2 test, partial pressure and O2 test, because as a Navy diver, you have to be able to be, if you have a diving related disease, you have to be able to get 100% oxygen at depth. So did that. Then on Tuesday, I believe I went down to EOD school to do my physical screening test. And I had been working out, so it was really a breeze. And it's not, I mean, it wasn't as competitive as it is now. I don't know if I could even compete with some of the athletes that they're getting in the teams now. Wednesday, I had an interview with the Master Chief Detailer for SEALs. And it was funny because the conversation went like, Gary, I've been talking to Lieutenant Berry. He expressed your interest in going and getting in the teams. Can you tell me a little bit about your incident at the Naval Academy and why you got kicked out? Master Chief, you know what? I had terminal case of not so smarts. We were drinking, we lied about it, and we got caught. Initially, we kept on lying about it. I finally realized I should tell the truth. And his response was, you know what? You're going to fit in really well in naval special warfare as a frogman. I go, okay. And Thursday, cleaning my barracks on the 7th floor, Master Chief calls me down. He looks at me and goes, I don't know what you did, but this is the fastest I've ever seen orders get changed. And do you know what you're doing? And I go, Master Chief, I'm sorry, but I would rather go to Coronado and get physically beaten every day, then go out to that ammunition ship and get harassed by some bosun's mate third class. Nothing against bosun's mates, but you know what? I'm going to take the better of what I believe are the best of two evils. Well, had the orders, I was on 2 weeks leave, and then I reported in, and actually probably a little bit longer, because I actually reported in to Buds in November of 79. So that's my story.
What a colorful past that you have there. I had no idea. Now, the first day of the academy, you're saying to yourself, what have I gotten myself into? So what was it like your first day walking into this?
It was, I remember, the night before, I got a hotel room with some other guy that I met, and his name was Joe Luff, and he was from Manhattan. And you know what? He was kind of cocky, and it was, oh, this is going to be so easy for me. I've done a lot of different stuff. Not a problem. Okay. I don't remember the first day at Buds. I remember Hell Week, which was probably 3 to 4 weeks into Buds. And then there's a lot of days during Buds that there's quite a few stories that I have from Buds. But yeah, I mean, because I was still, I was 22 years old, 56, 79, 23 years old, pretty well sheltered at the Naval Academy. Like we had an outdoor lounge with payphones, and like every Friday, I would call my mother and I would whine about, what am I doing here? Get me the heck out. And this is thanks to my boat crew that really, we worked together as a great team. And Joe Luff didn't make it because he had such a chip on his shoulder that he wasn't a good teammate. And we caused him to ring the bell. But my boat crew guys, they were fantastic.
Was there ever a point during Buds where you thought about ringing the bell yourself?
Never. I was going to finish that, and I was going to finish it to the end, because with the caliber of individuals that we had there, I wanted to be a part of that. And I didn't even think about it.
It's a great motivator. So you said you had some stories about Buds, so I'd love to hear them.
Oh, well, I mean, as soon as I got there, everybody knew that I got kicked out of the academy. I mean, word spreads like wildfire, especially when somebody comes in. And we had our company officer, or our class officer, what the heck was his name? Darn, it escapes me. But anyway, he was a fallen angel. So he went to flight school. He got washed out of flight school, and we could never figure out why in the heck you went to flight school, washed out, and then came to Buds. You must be insane. I think he ended up getting out of the Navy. So we had a second class, Conrad Ireland was a second class corpsman, and he was our class leader. And there was an instructor that his name was Scott Templeton. And I was in the grinder where we did the PT, and he comes up to me and goes, Rossi, so you were almost an officer, huh? I go, yes, Instructor Templeton. He goes, you know what? You stay here for a second. So he goes in his office, gets a 3x5 card, and goes, okay, you know what? Just for the good old United States Naval Academy, every time you see me, you're going to do a set of 100 8-count bodybuilders. And the goal by the time you're done is going to be 15 sets. So you're going to be able to do those 8 counts really well. So then we played cat and mouse. And I don't even remember if I finished the 15 sets of 118 count bodybuilders.
That'll definitely put you in shape.
Yeah, that was first phase. You know, I mean, Hell Week, well, another story is when I got there and they started parsing out wetsuits and booties and stuff like that. They did not have any booties my size, neoprene booties. So what they did, they gave me an extra pair of these really, the inside of them are coarse woolen socks. And those became my booties when I used the molded fins, the old UDT Voigt fins. That's what we used. Anyway, I think we did swimming for 2 weeks before Hell Week, and literally that coarse fiber rubbed both ankles on both feet almost raw. So going into Hell Week, I had ankles that were exposed with bare skin and they were constantly wet. So by Thursday night, I got a nice case of trench foot and cellulitis. And I remember I wasn't going to quit, but I swear to goodness, I was thinking that if we don't get secured tomorrow on Friday, I don't know if I can make it. They'll probably have to physically roll me out. But yeah, That was one of the things that, that it was pretty painful.
Now, how long was that training?
It was from, let's see, November 79. We graduated May 9th of 1980. So
that's a long time for that kind of abuse.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was three phases. You have basic, the first phase, which included Hell Week, which did a bunch of different stuff. Learn about weapons, doing a hydrographic reconnaissance, like what was involved in Normandy or Iwo Jima. And then second phase was the dive phase, where we used all the diving apparatus that we had at the time. We dove with the Emerson, open circuit scuba, and then they just came out with the Mark 15 mixed gas rig. So we got to dive all those rigs. And then third phase was land warfare. And with the last 3 weeks of BUDS, you go out to San Clemente Island and do land warfare type of stuff, as well as working out.
Well, dare I ask, what was graduation like from that training?
You know what? I remember, I was in Cracker Jacks. My mom and dad came down, and, graduating from BUDS is an accomplishment. And you just feel with your teammates, your classmates, and everybody getting through it. We graduated, I think at one time, and my class was Winter Class 107, just because we were started in November and went through November, December, and January. And granted, Coronado doesn't get really cold, but when you're in the water all the time, you get cold. But graduation it's a day that, you're proud of yourself. You don't get your trident yet, not like they do now, but you get your trident after SEAL qualification training. You still got to spend 6 months at that time, 6 months at the team, being a good boy, keeping your big mouth shut. And then after 6 months, if they think you're done what they want you to do, there was no There was no PQS like there is now, personal qualification standards where you have to do X, Y, Z. And then you get your trident. But graduation day is just the epitome of it. You're basically, gosh, I'm glad it's over and I got it. And then you can ring the bell.
Right. And it's a good ring.
Oh, it's a good ring, as hard as you can ring it.
So where did you go from there?
There I went to the trend was go to jump school at Fort Benning, Georgia. So I went to jump school. We went together as a class. And the Army and the Navy are two different animals. And I mean, things like if you made a mistake at Fort Benning, they tell you to drop for 10 push-ups. And I mean, we were doing at Bud's, when they made us drop, we would have to drop for 100, a set of 100. And you know what? We would give the black hats a bad time. And, and you go, sergeant or whatever, you know what? Instead of 10, I'm going to give you 50. How's that? And I mean, Fort Benning was unique. We had to get up because it was during the summer. Let's see, I went through Fort Benning. Yeah, I got out of Fort Benning in June of 1980. And I remember we had to get up in the early. We cleaned our rooms in the barracks. Then we had to wait until the chow hall opened up. So we were laying out in the courtyard. We went and had breakfast, and we started training. And that's the other thing. Jumping out of an airplane and landing is not that difficult. You can literally learn how to do that in 3 days. But with the Army and Fort Benning, it takes you 3 weeks to learn that. So, and for somehow, I think we probably had about I want to say, I remember thinking we had 450 students, Army, Navy, Marines, and I was the enlisted honor man. And I've got this nice little trophy, which is basically called Iron Mike, and it's a bronze figure of a paratrooper. And oh my gosh, that really irritated a lot of the Army guys. And on top of it, there was a gentleman he was an ROTC, Navy ROTC, and he was the officer Iron Man. So here, two Navy guys go to an Army school, and we become the honor men.
Not very popular, I would imagine.
Not very popular.
And so you got done there with your 3 weeks of training that could have taken 3 days.
Yeah.
Kind of like a meeting that could have been an email.
Yeah.
And where'd you go from there?
Then I reported aboard Underwater Demolition Team 11. And, I'll remember that day forever. I get on the quarterdeck, which is now demolished. We have a 5326 Facebook page, and a lot of my teammates are posting because they're opening a new facility down just north of Imperial Beach. It's supposed to be gorgeous. I haven't seen it, but they are tearing down and they're demoing all the old team areas. And the last one was UDT 11 or SEAL Team 5. And it's just like, man, all those memories are just demolished. But no, I walk in, I'm in my blues, I've got my jump wings on, and the petty officer of the watch looks at me. He goes, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I'm reporting for duty." He goes, "Let me see your orders." Okay. Gets on the 1MC and goes, "Fresh meat, come and get it."
What a nice welcome.
Oh, I know. But I had a great time. There were a lot of UDT 11 at that time seemed like it was the place a lot of Vietnam vets were serving at. So there was a lot of experience, and I think that's one of the challenges that we had, where we hadn't been operational for a long time, and then you have Afghanistan, Iraq. We had to get our expertise back and our skill sets back.
Right. So were you able to absorb a lot from those guys that had those experiences?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, there were so many guys. We would go on training ops for other platoons and night patrolling. One of the master chiefs, he goes and he carried law rockets. And if it was a fairly illuminated nighttime, he would increase the distance between the person in front of him, because he was a rear security. Because in Vietnam, the Viet Cong would set up ambushes, and if you didn't do that, everybody in the squad would be in the kill zone. So he wanted to increase that as much as possible. And if in case you did get ambushed, he could ambush the ambushers.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So what sort of things did you do in your time at UDT 11 then?
When I got there, I went through 2 COs. The first one, Clancy Hadelberg. We always kidded that he was I forget what he taught at National University, but we always thought that he spent more time at National than he did at Team 11. But I get there, he brings me in his office and he goes, "This is amazing. We need to get you back and get your commission back. And I've got to figure out a way to do that." So because he knew that we had gone through Mark 15, he put me in the dive locker, and just to get more knowledgeable about the Mark 15 dive rig. At that time, the Naval Experimental Diving Unit was tasked to do the mixed gas deep dive series. So they basically wanted 24 guinea pigs, but basically frogmen, from 12 from the East Coast, 12 for the West Coast. I was an E3. And you know what? Doing a gig like that is probably, the juniorest was probably be an E5. But he goes and says, "Gary, you're going to go to Panama City Beach. And first of all, you're going to Little Creek, Virginia to go through training a little bit more on the Mark 15. Matter of fact, Rudy Bosch, the first SEAL on Survivor, he was the gentleman that taught me how to dive the Mark 15.
Wow.
So, yeah. So anyway, I spent my first 6 months at NEDU doing the deep dive Mark 15 dive series. And that was, we did over 29 dives from July through August. They put us up in these nice condos. We had a good time. But yeah,
any good stories from there, Gary?
Oh, we're Navy frogmen. We're hairy-chested frogmen. And right next to the condo is the Spinnaker 2. And ladies' night is on a Thursday. So we get there and we don't know any better. And we're going out and they have a sand volleyball. So we get there a little bit early and we start playing volley. Well, the first Thursday, there's probably about 20, 30 women that look at it. Then we finally get the timing right. And by the time we were getting ready to leave, we probably had anywhere from 100, 200 women watching us play volley. We're all in good shape. We can run, we can swim, we lift, we work out. So, that's, and then plus diving, You dove 3 times a week or 2 times a week. The dive profiles were varied. At one dive, I think I did get a little bit of the bends just because the fourth dive or the third dive of the day, I came up. We had to go on a 3-mile run at 10-minute miles just because we were supervised by the diving medical physician. And there were certain parameters and regimen that they had to keep us by. Heck, we never abide by that. You're going to make us do a 10-minute mile when all of us are used to doing 5 and 6 minute miles or 18-minute 3 miles. Are you kidding me? But anyway, fourth dive, normally if you have decompression sickness, which are little like air bubbles in your bloodstrings or through your cavities, those get in there, and my shoulder started aching a little bit. So the fourth dive, when I got down to 60 feet, the pain went away. And that is somewhat of an indicator that I may have been bent. But I wasn't going to tell anybody, because then I would have had to go in every day to be either an inside or outside tender. So, but yeah, that was one of the stories too.
Well, and I think I see a trend is everywhere you go, the punishment isn't quite as harsh as you're used to.
Yeah, I mean, UDT 11, I had, and I was really interested. When I wrote some notes down, and I was actually only at UDT 11 for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Made one deployment. We, on that deployment, we were the first U.S. forces since the United States turned Iwo Jima back over to Japan in 1968. And they made a big deal about that because a lot of the Japanese did not want U.S. forces on Iwo Jima. So we basically did a hydrographic reconnaissance of Iwo Jima, and we were the first, our UDT platoon was the first U.S. forces on Iwo Jima. And then like on the 5th, we did a dive, which is on Shipwreck Beach, just to the west of Mount Suribachi, on the other side of Suribachi, where they had a bunch of cargo ships that did not get out of the way or were not able to leave the island before the U.S. forces bombed the heck out of it.
And how did that feel to go? How did it feel to go there where all of that action had taken place, and now it was, for the most part, peaceful?
You know what? I was amazed at the black volcanic ash sand. When we got off the boat, we were in wetsuits, and your legs literally sunk into the black volcanic ash up to your knees. And what the Japanese had done in the hard pack, they had made trenches with flaps and waited for the first 2 waves of Marines to hit the hard pack. The flaps went up and they mowed the Marines down. So the 4th and 5th waves of Marines were actually getting cover from their fallen teammates.
Right.
And I mean, you look at it and go, wow.
Yeah, the thought, what they must have been thinking as they got on that beach is pretty overwhelming, I would imagine.
Yeah. And you probably didn't even think, because as soon as you got after a while, the landing ramp went down and you were getting fired.
Right.
So
yeah. So after two years at UDT 11, what was your next duty station?
From there, I always wanted to get my degree back, and that's when, I mean, Clancy helped me. Career advisor there at Team 11 was what was Roger's first name? Anyway, he was an IS. Anyway, he comes up to me when I was at E3, and he goes, Gary, don't you want to get advanced? Don't you want to get paid more? Go, you know what? I'm having fun. I don't know any difference. And he goes, how about your degree? So he actually helped me get my degree. I got my degree officially, and what we had to do was had to get my transcript from the Naval Academy and have it sent to the University of State of New York. And then they wanted to verify some of my courses that I had on my transcript with what they offered. So instead of the Naval Academy being able to send it directly to them, Naval Academy had to send me a course catalog, and we had to send it to New York. I got my degree, conferred my degree in September of 81. And then when I was leaving, SEAL Team 6 was starting. I got 2 interviews with Dick Marcinko, SEAL Team 6. But again, my goal was always to get my commission. Mm-hmm. And I had that. And I also had the opportunity to go for the jump team. So leapfrogs. And I chose to go to the Naval Academy. I mean, go to get my commission through OCS. Went to OCS, and that was, March. Let's see, I graduated and got my commission March 25th of 82. You know, one of the other things that I've got to think, when I was at Team 11, I went through a lot of schools. Before we deployed, I had to go through SEER school. Mm-hmm. And SEER, not everybody goes through SEER school. And they give you one day, they release you at like 8:00, and you have to evade the instructors. So there was this A4 pilot, Skyhawk pilot, and he was a JG. And he goes, well, how can we evade? I go, stick with me. And what was I? Let's see, that was in 81. So I probably was a third class at the time. Anyway, he and I crawled through the scrub brush at SEER school. And we had crawled so far, we could barely hear the recall horn. And then we said, okay, let's get out in the trail. And we basically walked in to the prisoner of war camp. It's called the Resistance Training Laboratory.
How fancy.
Oh, yeah. And then, you know what? And then the fun starts.
Yes. Yeah, I can only imagine. What was it like there?
Oh, I mean, they gave you all the skills just in case you were ever a prisoner of war. Mm-hmm. I mean, they went through hardcore interrogation. There's as big as Samoan guy, and there was a padded wall. Then there was a guy, quote, comrade behind a desk, and he'd ask you a question, give him an answer. If it wasn't suitable to them, the Samoan guy will pull you down and slam you up against the wall. Then they went through soft interrogation where they had group meetings and stuff. And what happened was the class before me, where they put an entire platoon of guys through SEER school. And I guess some of the instructors got over rambunctious, and the team guys took over the camp. And they basically put a couple guys in the hospital. So our Commodore had to go out to SEER school and say, okay, let's play nice. Come on, turn over the camp. So I was the only SEAL or frog in my class. And there was a SEAL that was on the staff, and his name was Chicken McNair. And I walk in, and Chicken looks at me and he goes, oh, fun. You are going to have so much fun in your life while you're here. And I mean, like another night, we were going into a group session, and they said there was escape passes. So I'm in my clothes. I've got field jacket on, and we're there, and somebody goes, "We're going to cause a diversion and we're going to give you escape pass." I go, "Fine." So somebody falls down, the instructors go and see what's going on. And then all of a sudden I feel these hands in my pocket, and they're pieces of wood. So as soon as I get that, the front gate's open. So I beat feet out the gate. Nobody sees me. And there's this tree, and I crouch down under the tree, and there's a light, the lights there. And I go, "Okay, well, let's see if there's anything on these stupid things." Nothing. There's no writing whatsoever. I just go, "Okay, you know what? Am I going to wait till morning, freeze out here, and get reprimanded in the morning, or I might as well just get it over and done with, so then I can at least get all the pain and agony over with and go back to my hole?" Because they basically had, what were they? I want to say 3 feet long, 2 feet wide, and maybe 3 feet tall. And that was your hotel room.
Your
Corrugated
accommodations.
steel. Yeah, those are your accommodations. Anyway, I go in, and the camp commandant, he's standing by the fire, and he goes, "What are you doing out of your hole?" I go, I escaped. And he goes, "Let me see your escape pass." He looks at it, and I'm not paying attention. And oh my gosh, his right arm came out of the North 40, hit me so hard, knocked me back 10 feet, and I think my head bounced on the ground like a basketball.
He was not happy with that, I take it.
He was not happy with that at all. Yeah. So anyway, that's one of those things. SEER School, B-54 SATM School. It's a fairly small nuclear weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It weighs about 80, 90, 100 pounds. And since I was the junior guy in the platoon, we had to have the capability of using that munition. So I got to be able to have the experience to excel of using and at least knowing how to use that weapon if we had to ever use it, which was basically a one-way mission anyway.
Right, right. It's a good skill to have, I guess.
Yes.
So when you left UDT 11, where did you go from there?
I went to OCS. I got
okay.
slot in OCS. Again, that was another challenge too, because when I applied for OCS, there was in my jacket, and I put it in my OCS packet, that Admiral Bill Lawrence, who was a superintendent, wrote to a then acting Secretary of the Navy, Hidalgo, who was the Secretary of Transportation, that Midshipman Rossi was unsuitable to be a commissioned officer in the United States Navy. And I wrote that in my letter with my accompanying package. Anyway, I got turned down the first time. So I went to my CO and XO, and at that time, Heidelberg had left. So now it was Richards. But he didn't want anything to do with it. The XO made a phone call, and he couldn't do it. He said he couldn't change anything. So I said, that's one thing that I am a firm believer of. If anything's going to happen, I'm going to make it happen. So I found out where Admiral Lawrence was, and I sent him copies of my fit reps or my evals. Mm-hmm. And he gave me his phone number, and he said, "Call me." And so I gave him a call, told him what was going on. He goes, "Well, Gary, you know what? I think you've done well since you got separated. You're not going back to the academy because you violated my honor code." He actually developed the honor code. And I have the utmost respect for Bill Lawrence. Bill Lawrence was phenomenal. And so I was talking to him at the phone booth on the corner of the Naval Exchange and NAB Coronado. And he goes, let me see what I can do. So he goes, stay where you're at. What's the phone number there? And about 15 minutes later, he calls me and says, okay, when you get off your deployment, you're going to go to OCS, and this is your class number. And there should be the commander that disapproved the package to call you after I'm done. This commander calls me and he goes, Petty Officer Rossi, I don't know who you know, but I got a call from Vice Admiral Lawrence, and he basically said that you will get in the next OCS class. So I was going on leave, and then when I got back from deployment, they said that I wasn't there. The class was filled, and they couldn't get me into a class until January of '83. Well, by this time, Bill Lawrence and I were on first name basis, and I've got his phone number. So I called the flag sec and I go, can I please speak to Admiral Lawrence? This is Petty Officer Rossi. And she goes, does he know you? And I go, yes, he absolutely knows me. He goes, Gary, what's up? Admiral, I hate to bother you, but they said they can't get me in the OCS class that we were supposed to get into. He goes, what? Where are you at? And I forget where I was. Give me your phone number. I'll be in touch. Same thing. Calls me back and says, don't worry, you will be going to OCS in October. So that's how I got to OCS. Just another challenge along the way.
Right. It seems like that is how your life has gone.
And and the funny thing was, when I went to OCS, and because I swam, I played a bunch of different sports there. We always had athletics. And then, I was a lifeguard out of high school. So I got to be on the regimental lifeguard staff, which was fun. Hang out at the pool at night, play water polo, practice water polo. And I said, what would be really neat? They actually had the regimental lifeguard. And I said, hey, you know what? I want to be regimental lifeguard. The leadership, the officer corps at OCS had different ideas. They go, Gary, no, you're not going to be regimental lifeguard. You're going to be the regimental adjutant, because we want prior service members to show the new men and women in the Navy what sailors can really do. So, we had a helicopter pilot, Keith Marchbanks. I think he got shot down 5 times in Vietnam from his Huey. And he had Bronze Stars, Purple Heart. So.
Now, how long was OCS?
4 months? Yeah, November through March.
And so I'm assuming now that you finally got your commission then.
Yeah, I got my commission. I was commissioned on March 25th, 1982.
Lieutenant JG, right?
Well, Ensign.
Ensign, that's right.
Yes.
Started with Ensign. So then where did Ensign Rossi go after OCS?
Oh, I went to SWAS right out of that. Well, I decided that I wasn't going back for personal reasons. I was dating a Navy nurse, and she was getting stationed at Oakland Naval Hospital. And it wasn't desired to have somebody that was enlisted in the teams go back to the same coast. So they were going to send me to the East Coast. So instead of doing that, what I did is I went into the special operations, which was it's a new community. You have 4 specialties within that community: explosive ordnance disposal, the Navy's bomb squad, mine warfare, expendable ordnance management, bullet counters, and then diving and salvage. So that's the community I went to. And then from OCS, you know, as a naval officer, especially even as a special operations officer, you had to get command at sea to get promotable, to be promotable. So, you know, I went to Surface Warfare Officer School, and then because you're a diver, basic diving officer school. When I was at basic diving officer school, I don't know if you know Mike Thornton. He's a Medal of Honor awardee. He had been a SEAL, and over the course of that basic diving officer and ship salvage diving officer school, he became my roommate. So I roomed with Mike Thornton. I was just thinking, because that was in 93, and now it's 20, and I've known Mike now for 40 years.
Yeah. Do you find that what I always find amazing is when I meet people like that, how I mean, they're extraordinary people, but they're regular people, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. Mike is down to earth. You know what? He's had his own challenges, but he is, he's a great friend.
So what was your time like with this group, and what sorts of things did you do?
With salvage school, the neat thing they have, and I don't know if I don't think they have it now, but they had an old destroyer that they cut holes in it, and with surface supplied Mark 12 at the time, I think I only dove the Mark 5 hard hat, the bronze one. I put it on. I'm not even saying I dove it. I put it on just to experiment the feeling of it. But with Mark 12, we had to go in, find the patches, find the locations of them all, put patches on, and then de-water the ship and raise the ship. If the ship raised, we all passed. If the ship didn't raise, we didn't pass. And we were given a week to do it.
Easy enough, right?
Easy enough. So I mean, I had a good time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now, did you get a sea command at all? You were talking a little bit about that. Did you?
I was an executive officer aboard a minesweeper.
Okay. And where was that at?
It was the Naval Reserve Center in Tacoma, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what? That was after dive school. And I went to the USS Haleakala right out of dive school. And I was the damage control assistant. I was supposed to be the 3rd division officer. The CO at the time, Joe Felty, God rest his soul, he was a Brownwater Navy sailor in Vietnam. He had worked with the teams. So I walk in, of course, I have my trident on, and I go, "Captain, I'm reporting for duty as the 3rd division officer." And he starts laughing. I go, "Did I say something funny?" He goes, "Gary, I know what your background is, but I have a bosun or a gunner that has 30 years of experience handling ordnance. Why would I replace the gunner with you? With that being said, I have got a great opportunity for you to excel." And he made me the damage control officer, basically the assistant fire chief on the ship. And you know what? He sent me to every school possible that I could succeed. And he made it possible for me to excel.
So truly an opportunity for you then.
Oh yeah, it was. You know what? I was really one of the movers and shakers on the Haleakala, because I was in charge of all damage control. So I touched everybody on the ship. I had some run-ins. with our first lieutenant. I was in charge of the smash and crash because we had a helo deck. So yeah.
So from there, where did your career progress in the Navy?
Then I went from the Haleakala. I went to Explosive Ordnance Disposal School in Indian Head, Maryland. And like we say, the best view of Indian Head is viewing Indian Head, Maryland in your rear view mirror.
What was that experience like? That it doesn't sound like it was
You know
great.
what? It's just Indian Head with EOD school. It's just rash memorization. I mean, one of the things I wrote down, and I don't think I'll ever forget this, is that we had to go over air ordnance, and they would have some good problems. And one was an A4 Skyhawk, and it had a sidewinder still intact on the fuselage. And you're supposed to go and you're supposed to try to take as many pictures on site, and you're supposed to limit the amount of time that you're on site. Well, I go and look at the ordnance, and it was a sidewinder. And I knew, I mean, you can tell right off the bat. And you know what? The safe and arming device, it's something that could escape you. And I get to the pubs and I'm looking through it. I go, son of a gun. I saw it, but I didn't write it down. I go, okay, well, let's do it this way. I'm going to draw a picture of safe and arming, of where safe is, where's neutral, where's armed. And the thing that you use is an Allen wrench, and it tells me what size Allen wrench. So I get that thing and I just beat feet all the way down, because you have a time limit for the problem. Anyway, I beat feet down, I look at it, and I look at the picture, I look at the safe and arming device, and I go, son of a gun. It's in neutral. So all I have to do is turn it with the Allen wrench to safe. Bingo. And that was it. And the instructor's looking at me, he goes, Rossi, you are so lucky. But, you know, I mean, there was a lot of things that fuses and different types of mortar rounds and torpedoes and all different types of stuff that you had to do. And it was really more mental than physical at EOD school. And then there's a second part where you go through to Huntsville, Alabama for the chemical portion, where you go through a chemical chamber of, I forget whatever kind of gas they put in, and you have to wear the CBDR get up. And then you go through all the chemical types of munitions that are worldwide. And then from there, you know, I went to EOD Mobile Unit 4.
Now, where's that located?
That was in Key West. It was a victim of BRAC base realignment and closure. Mm-hmm. And I was the officer in charge of 2 marine mammal systems. One was for sea lions that recovered practice mines, and the other one was a dolphin detachment that we were able to locate and neutralize proud and buried mines.
So this sounds like something out of a movie, Gary.
It was fun. It was fun. I mean, I had, you know, I wrote SOPs. The guys in the detachment, they were trained. We go through a marine mammal education to learn about operant behavior and operant conditioning. But really the enlisted guys do all the work. Mm-hmm. The only time I ever went out was, you know, I needed to go diving to keep my dive quals up, or I just wanted to go out to sea instead of sitting behind a stupid computer doing my SOPs, because they were both brand new programs on the East Coast. So I wrote all the SOPs. And then again, my claim to fame was with Mark 7. There were 2 different segments of that Mark 7 dolphin program. One was those animals that could detect mines that were proud to the bottom. Others were trained to detect buried mines. Well, one had boats, one had the equipment. They had a mixed match of people. And I always kid that I should never walk down the hallway at Mobile Unit 4 because I always get tagged for something. And this one guy walking down the hallway, and the CO looks at me and goes, "Hey, Gary, you know what? The XO and I want to talk to you." I go, "Am I in trouble?" He goes, "No. Come on into my office." Go in there. And he goes, "You know what, Gary, you know about Mark 7, right?" And there were two other lieutenants that were in charge of each one of the attachments. He goes, "What would you do with those? Because they have an inspection coming up." Honestly, with what I see, I'd put them both together and just continue doing the training plan to keep both behaviors for both sets of animals, but have everybody together and share, or at least put it all in one detachment so you have all the equipment and everything. He goes, "Oh, okay. Okay, thanks." 2 weeks go by, walking down that darn hallway again. And this time it's the XO. And he goes, "Hey, Gary, CO and I want to talk to you." "Where at?" "In my office." And it's just like, the XO's desk is here. There's a window here, and the CO's on that couch. There's another couch here. And when I walk in, Captain goes, "Gary, sit in that couch." And I go, "Am I in trouble again?" He goes, "No." He goes, "Guess what? We got a good deal for you." And you know what? The CO was a SEAL, and he went into Spec Ops, into EOD. So I'm very cautious when somebody says, especially another frog or SEAL that says, "I got a good deal for you," that the hair on the back of my head raise up. And he goes, "Gary, guess what? You are now the Mark 7 officer in charge." I go, "What about Ed and Mark, or Matt?" And "That's not your problem." "Oh, one other thing. You know how the inspection was supposed to be in November? And it's April now." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Just a little schedule change. It's now scheduled for August." I go, "April, May, June, July." I go, "Skipper, that's 5 months." He goes, "I know you have a lot of work to do. You better get up and go to work." And I mean, one of the neat things about it is you look at what the training has to do, and one of the requirements to get certified is we have to load everything up in an aircraft or aircrafts, fly it away to a desert. And because we're in Key West, we flew it up to Jacksonville, Florida, emptied everything off the airplane, set up a temporary staging area to work, get the animals acclimated to the waters of Jacksonville, and then go out and do a simulated minefield. Then load everything back up, and at the end of the 2 weeks, and fly back to Key West, and that is one of the checkbox. And it's just like, okay, I got to get a bunch of guys get load planner qualified through the Air Force. I've got to get aircraft online, plus we have to train. And it was just like, okay. Anyway, we were the first marine mammal system, as they call it, to be mine readiness certified on the East Coast. So well, I had a great group of guys that worked with me.
Quite an accomplishment, actually.
Yeah. From there, I got screened for department head school as well as PXO school, because again, as a surface as a somewhat a surface warfare officer, it's command at sea. And the CO and I mean, that's another guy. I mean, Tom Ligon, because we got MRCI certified, and because of what we did, we had a pretty good knit group, tight-knit group of individuals. He says you need to go to sea. The community isn't growing as fast as it should. Nobody knows who we are. So you need to go out and be a surface warfare officer. So I did that, and I was the XO on the USS Implicit, a minesweeper out of the Pacific Northwest at the Tacoma Reserve Center. Again, it seems like I get in these situations where we have to fix something, because this MSO, it's a reserve. 70% of the crew when we got there was reservists, and they put in an active duty commanding officer and me as the active duty executive officer, because Desert Shield and Desert Storm were looming on the horizon. And they wanted to make sure that if we needed minesweepers, that we would have minesweepers to go to the Persian Gulf to sweep for mines. The CO, he was, you know what, he was a hard charger, micromanager, but you know, I learned a lot from him. The next guy was great guy. I joke that I have to go in and say, hey, Captain, is there anything you want me to do? Because he would, I mean, he'd walk around, he'd talk to everybody, but he goes, everything, Gary, everything's going great. You've been here for 2 years. You know, I have nothing to complain about. You run the show, man. So yeah. And you know what, because of what we did in that crew, trying to get the culture change. This is an example. There was an EN2, engineman second class, and he was on board that ship for 6 years as a reservist. Hard worker. I mean, he would get aboard, go in the engine room, put on his coveralls, and do whatever he had to do. I go down there in the engine room because I had coveralls too. I like walking around. I figured that that's the best way of learning and meeting everybody in the crew. I get down there in the engine room, and he looks at me and he goes, using an expletive, XO, what the are you doing down here? I go, do I need a special invitation? I didn't think I saw one in my mailbox to come down in the engine room. He goes, sir, honestly, no disrespect, but I haven't had one executive officer down in this engine room in the entire time I've been aboard. And I go, well, guess what? Today's a new day. And you know what? Why don't you? And we had Waukesha engines, and Waukeshas would constantly leak. So I say, you know what? Put some rags out so I can wipe the engines down, and you can do something important. So I can help you out. And he goes, okay, I can do that. Good guy, good kid. But I mean, we went through in-serve, we went through ref tray, and we had old crusty Master Chief minemen that came aboard, and they said, based upon their experience looking at all the other minesweepers in the United States Navy, they said, by far, your minesweeper is the best kept and the cleanest, and it is the best minesweeper in the United States Navy. We got back-to-back battle efficiencies. So, you know, that's not an easy thing to accomplish, but it takes an entire crew to do that.
Right. In leadership, which by the way, you demonstrated with the engineman, you know, that's probably a leadership lesson he never forgot.
Yeah. He was, you know, he was kind of outspoken too, but I kind of like outspoken sailors. Sailors aren't sailors if they're not outspoken.
That's true. That's very, very true. So when you're on the minesweeper, did you ever get the opportunity to actually go to the Gulf and do any minesweeping, or was it just
Actually, because of what we did aboard implicit, we were supposed to, we did all the pre-deployment stuff. We were getting ready to go. And 2 weeks before we were supposed to, they were supposed to pull us out of the water, put us on a deep draft and send us over. They said, you know what? We're not going to do that. We're going to keep you in Tacoma and we're going to send other minesweeping crews to you to train because you are the best in the Navy. And we would rather have you train than go over to the Persian Gulf. So, and it was kind of a double-edged sword because we'd gone through pre-deployment training or pre-deployment workups. We were getting ready to go. We were kind of jazzed to go, but all of a sudden we're not. But that's okay too, because we're back still with our family.
right? Well, and you have the legacy of having trained all the other folks that are doing that work as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So what happens next?
It was like three staff jobs in a row. I went to Commander Naval Surface Force Pacific as the mine warfare EOD SEAL, and mine warfare was going to the Mine Warfare Center of Excellence in Texas. The SEALs were starting to get more purple, so they were going under SOCOM. So SurfPac was getting rid of them, and the only thing left was EOD. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I would do is I get an EOD request at SurfPac. I'd turn around to EOD Group One, which was across the street. And because they had an opening over there, I was double-hatted. I was the N8 at EOD Group One, which was the Warfare Requirements, Readiness, and Training. So I basically wrote out a Navy message, take a 4-act, take for action, send it to EOD Group One. It had the office code of N8, which was me. So I walk across the street, receive my own email or my own message, and then task one of the EOD groups to take care of it.
Seems like you might have been able to skip a step in there. I don't know.
Oh, I have not the Navy. You were in the Navy, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 10 years.
Yeah, that doesn't. We're nothing we do in the Navy that we do it easy.
No, I got to be honest, Gary. This conversation is bringing back a lot of really great memories for me as well. So you do these back-to-back admin jobs, which I got to think at some point is driving a little bit crazy. So what happens after that?
Well, what I did at SurfPac, I've had, he was kind of a different kind of guy. His name was Burchell. And he had been, at that time, the Navy was starting in total quality leadership. And he calls me in and he goes, Gary, you don't really have a job, do you? I go, Captain, come on, give me a break. And I got promoted to lieutenant commander on the minesweeper. So I was a lieutenant commander now. He goes, you don't have a job, do you? I go, well, come on. He goes, guess what? I know what you do. And yeah, you take the 4 acts and walk across the street and respond to them. And we give EOD services. I got that. Well, guess what? I have a lot of stuff to do. And I've been tasked to be the SurfPac TQL coordinator. But guess what? I got a great deal for you. I'm going to send you to every TQL course you can imagine. And you're going to be the pseudo TQL coordinator. I go, you know what? Why not? And, I really enjoyed it. I'm a data guy that I like basing decisions on data. So TQL and statistical process control, I went through what, 8 courses that the Navy developed. I mean, they gave us a great library learning about W. Edward Deming's, Feigenbaum, Schuhart, all the critical thinkers in the area of quality or process improvement. And I really enjoyed it. So, that led me to get my master's degree. At that time, University of Redlands was really catering to the Navy in San Diego. So they developed a Master's of Art in Management with an emphasis in total quality management, which now has moved in to really organizational excellence. And that kind of started my career as a consultant once I got out of the Navy. So, you know what? Burchell did well as far as I'm concerned, because otherwise I would have never thought about that.
Well, you think about it, all the things that you learn and all the schools that you've gone to in your time in the military, at least from my perspective, it prepared me for all of the things that I've done in my civilian
Oh
life.
yeah. Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. And then like at EOD Group One, I mean, of course, the job at SurfPack transitioned out. And I was that was one of the smart things they did. And like Burchell said, or no, actually it wasn't Burchell, it was Margolis. Margolis came in to relieve Burchell. And it's amazing I can remember all these names. But anyway, Captain Margolis comes in. He goes, I tell you what, Gary, why don't we do this? If there's a 4-act, so-and-so will call you, let you know, and then you can come over, do that, but stay over there. And I still wore the hat, but I just didn't have an office on at SurfPack. Mm-hmm. Both those guys were very supportive of me. But anyway, I got a Master's of Art in Total Quality Leadership, Total Quality Management while I was at SurfPack and EOD Group One. I kind of followed one of my colleagues from job to job. So he was at Commander-in-Chief U.S. Pacific Fleet as the Fleet Mine Warfare and EOD officer. So he was getting ready to roll. He calls me up and goes, Gary, I got a deal for you. You want to come to Hawaii for 2 years? As long as my follow-on tour gives me an EOD XO tour. And he goes, okay, I'm the detailer now. And he was the detailer, or is it SingPack Fleet? Yeah, he was at SingPack Fleet. And then he was going to go be the detailer. Anyway, so I go, okay, Gary, why not? And I became the Fleet Mine Warfare and EOD staff officer there. I also picked up, I had a friend who was the SEAL on the staff at SingPack Fleet. When I was an E3, E4 at UDT 11, he was a diving officer at UDT 12. And we were right next, our diving lockers were right next to each other. He knew I was coming. So one day I'm in my office and he walks in and he goes, hey, Gary, guess what? I go, what do you want? He goes, I travel a lot. And I go, okay, so how does that affect me? He goes, you see that thing on your chest? And I wore my trident and I put, I can't really, unless I'm going to a special operations function, then I would put my spec ops pin there. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't wear my trident, but normally I would wear my trident. Anyway, he goes, you see that pin on your chest? You know just as much as anybody. So when I leave, guess who people are going to call? No. So I was the pseudo second SEAL on staff to take care of whatever he wasn't around to take care of. And then, I did TQL there. I got involved with that. I did a strategic plan that was kind of like one of my first strategic plans with Nav Meteorological Center, Pearl Harbor, which was a lot of fun. I got involved with the Hawaiian Conference on Quality. Ben and Jerry's was there. Jack Welch was there. Oh yeah, I mean, I have studied Jack Welch, just his leadership style when he was dubbed Neutron Jack, to when he got rid of that moniker and really did wonders for General Electric with the Crotonsville Leadership Training Center. I got involved with the American Society for Quality while I was in Hawaii. I became a certified quality manager. One of the neat things that I really was proud of, because I was the EOD officer, I had a very close relationship, probably too close, with the Army colonel at US SINCPAC. It was so close that he would not let me travel anywhere, because he goes, Gary, if I have something come up and I need EOD, and I actually was in charge of all EOD forces in the fleet. That means the Army, the Navy, the Marines, everybody, because I was a senior officer. So I couldn't go anywhere. And we had a defense agreement with the Federated States of Micronesia to take care of any unexploded ordnance that they had from World War II. And I would have loved to gone to Palau. We had a thing in Palau. We had something else, I forget, one of the other islands. But every time I go, come on, Colonel, let me go one time. No, fine. But what we did, which was really neat, I also organized the EOD services for Joint Task Force full accounting for the servicemen that were killed during Vietnam, and their bodies were not recovered. There was forget what it was. It was probably an A4, maybe it was an A6 intruder that got shot down in China. And I helped get the EOD forces to go on that to recover the pilots. And that was really, that was very satisfying to be able to be involved in that.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know what, after that? Oh, the other thing we had to do is one of the other things was Ford deployed 2 mine countermeasure ships to Bahrain, to the Persian Gulf, under 7th Fleet. And that was, I have never written so many point papers in my life convincing people to make that happen. But it saved money.
What year was that when those 4 were deployed?
That was, let me look at my notes. See, I wrote all this stuff down for you. That had to be in 90, I want to say 95, late 95, early 96.
Okay.
And then the neatest thing in my naval career is we were at Pearl Harbor on the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II. So they brought in a carrier, and we had to do a security sweep of the Arizona Memorial because they were having a ceremony with all the dignitaries on the Arizona Memorial. So the night before the ceremony, of course, the carrier comes in, and you come into the Pearl Harbor. I mean, big ship, big props. It is going to put up a lot of silt and sand. And it was a nighttime. So we were getting ready we go over to the landing at Pearl Harbor. And before we got in, they had one of the survivors of Pearl Harbor, twin brother, December 7th, 1940, what is Pearl Harbor, 44?
41.
Is that 41? Thank you. He and his brother were getting up to go to church. It was 7:55. They get on the main deck. They dog the hatch. Then his brother goes, darn, I forgot my wallet, and it's inside. Undogs the hatch, goes inside, dogs the hatch, and that's exactly the same time at 0800 when the first bomb hit gun turret number 1 on Arizona. He was tossed about 250 yards into the harbor. And of course, he never saw his brother again. That gentleman unfortunately passed, I think, 3 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago. But just listening to his stories. And then after that, we all get in the water. We start doing a search of the Arizona. Started on the port side, go up to the bow, come around. At first, when I saw the hawse pipe, I go, man, that's a big hole. Well, duh, no wonder, it's a battleship, and you've got a battleship chains are pretty big. So dawned on me, and I can kick myself because I did not really look at the schematic of the Arizona before I did the surface search, and I should have. Anyway, about, I want to say 20 or 30 feet past the hawse pipe was really the leading edge of gun turret number 1. And literally there is a 6 to 8 inch opening where the detonation, the sympathetic detonation of that bomb and the powder bags, the 16-inch shells, it just cracked. And battleship are 16 inches worth of steel, and it cut it like a knife. Mm-hmm. And you could literally put your hand through the crack. And of course, we went down a little bit farther, and we went through, just checked out all the portholes. And this is where I could kick myself from not really looking at the schematic. We come up and over the stern. Of course, on the starboard side is where the seaplane launch used to be. But because of the visibility, I wanted to go over gun turret number 4, because what they did, they took it off, and any survivor of Arizona that passes away, if they desire, their urn can be buried in gun turret number 4. And you know how big a 16-inch turret is.
Oh, yeah.
We missed the stupid turret. My dive buddy have no idea how we missed it. The neat thing is, or weird thing is, I'm neutrally buoyant. And as we were going amidships, I started descending, and all of a sudden I got this weird feeling as if somebody's talking to me saying, please do not touch the main deck. This is our casket. And I just immediately, with my hands going like this, and it was the eeriest feeling that I had. I would love to stay underwater. I had a Dud as a dive buddy because he said, oh, this is boring. I don't want to do it anymore. So we cut the dive short. But that was, diving. And that's that was my kind of like hail and farewell from Sink Pack Fleet. They gave me a beautiful charcoal photograph of Arizona and the Arizona Memorial. And that was, that's one of my cherished pictures that I have. Yeah. From there, EOD Mobile 3 as an XO. That was a very short-lived tour. As a leader in an executive, EOD was not, was still in the back burner. They didn't get a lot of funding, and out of sight, out of mind. And EOD Mobile 3 was at the far right-hand corner of NAB Coronado. It was basically a trash heap. First couple of weeks, I would walk around doing a, quote, unofficial zone inspection, and there was crap everywhere. There was corrugated steel between two buildings that had been there for 10 years that nobody wanted. And like I said, we made, as a crew and the leadership, the implicit one of the best minesweepers. So, and we cleaned that ship up.
Right.
EOD and I probably were not a good fit. Anyway, long story short, Friday afternoon, CO's gone, I'm acting. I get a phone call from Carrier Air Group One, from the air ops boss. Says, hey, XO, what's going on? They were going to do a SYNC-X of an old, I think it was the Yukon, Canadian cruiser. Well, SYNC-X is back on. Is your EOD unit on board, ready to go? And I go, hey, they've gone through certification. You got 2 master blasters there, which are master EOD techs. You got an OIC who has done pre-deployment training and everything. So yeah, I mean, they're ready to go. So he goes, okay, that's all I want to hear. So I go out to my ops officer and I go, hey, ops, where's the SOP? We're trying to get it. And I go, excuse me? And I'm not a micromanager, and neither was the CEO. And I go, you didn't get a copy before they got on board the ship? No, we're trying to get one. And you know what? I'm Italian and I cannot stand incompetence. And I told him to get in his office. And I said, you know what? We don't micromanage you, but this is just absolutely negligence by allowing an EOD jet to deploy and not keep a copy of every SOP. And he stands up in front of me and I said, sit your butt down, because I will get you for insubordination and I will end your frickin' career. And at that unit, there were 3 lieutenant commanders. I was in zone for commander, and I was going to get deep select. I got deep selected for lieutenant commander. I was going to get deep selected for commander. And he went to the CO's house on Saturday and said, I assault and batterized him. So the CO comes in on Monday and queries me about it. And I said, I didn't even call him captain. I go, Dan, you know what? You know my background. If I had assault and batterized him, he would be in intensive care right now fighting for his life. So I want to see where the bruises are. Well, he couldn't show me any. There weren't any. Rest my case. That's okay. We got to do a preliminary investigation. And you know what? That was in 96, 97. It happened like about in March. And they went through the preliminary investigating officer. They had some, I'm going to call him a knucklehead from one of the aviation units that all they did was just administration. And they had me going through anger management because the Navy was changing to a different type of Navy. And maybe, you know, the way I look back on it, because all my mentors, I mean, the 06 that I worked, the 3 06s I worked for at Sink Pack Fleet weren't around, couldn't contact them. The 2 06s that I worked for at Surf Pack weren't around, couldn't contact them. So I basically was kind of on my own. And I said, okay, maybe this is, and my only goal was to serve my country for 20 years. The way I looked at it is that after I got separated from the Naval Academy, anything after getting my commission back and being an ensign was gravy. So I look at my career, I almost caught up with my classmates from the Naval Academy. You know, it probably was the time. And so they went through that, and they finally, I got detached for cause. And the CO calls me up, and I was looking at ways of what I could do, because you know what, it did. Well, I found out that the admiral of the new admiral at SurfPac had sent a message down my chain of command and said this went too far. I should not have been detached for cause. And I look at that, I say, you've got 3 stars. You approved it. Are you freaking kidding me? And you know what they did? I started making comments about, and then I heard from, I had the goat locker and myself, in every organization, the goat locker and I have been had a fantastic relationship. So the goat locker started telling me stuff about what was going on, and that the chain of command was kind of regretting what happened.
Mhm.
Well, that didn't do me any good. I've already got detached for cause. So that CO calls me up and goes, Gary, I need to talk to you. I go, okay. Can we meet at the library? And there's a back office. I felt it was like a gangster movie, a back
Right.
office agreement. So he goes, oh, wear civilian clothes. He goes, so we're in this office, we're in civilian clothes. He goes, what are you going to do? I go, I don't know. What are you going to do? What's SurfPac going to do? Okay, here's the thing. You're at 17, or yeah, by 97, you're at 2 years out. I go, I tell you what, I won't do a darn thing if I go someplace and I'm not going to get some schmuck EOD job. I want to get out of the community. If you want to take my special operations pin away from me, take my spec ops pin away from me. I don't care. But I want to retire. And he goes, if you do that, we're good with that. And I go, tell SurfPac that. And sure enough, you know what? Because I had done all the TQL stuff, they started having, and I don't know how long it had been there, but I found out that there was an opening at TQL Team Pacific as an internal consultant. So I went there, and I actually, myself and the senior chief, closed that down. And then I went to work by networking, probably another one of the best naval officers and neat person I've ever met. Her name was Ronnie Froman. She was a 2-star. She was Commander Navy Region Southwest. I worked for her. She called me because they were doing a regionalization effort, an A76 study to reduce the overall cost of doing business for all the bases in California, Arizona, and Nevada. And we, quote, we saved. They just took the money away from us. So we had to operate with less money. But they say $46 million that we saved. But I enjoyed working with Ronnie. And it was really funny because I've worked with Ronnie on 2 other occasions outside of the Navy when we both retired. And then, I retired September 1st, 1999.
Wow. So how did that feel after that, after that time? I mean, what was that feeling? What was that like when you were able to retire?
I was glad that people had recognized that there was an injustice. Yes, I lost my temper. I think, you know what? I mean, EOD, I was glad to get away from EOD.
Mhm.
I don't have the enlisted guys are phenomenal. They are the true EOD technicians. The officer corps is questionable in my mindset. Granted, there's a lot of challenges now with SEAL team and the leadership and the guys going a little bit rogue. But that happened. I mean, Marcinko was rogue. I missed the camaraderie. I enjoy wearing the uniform. My wife is in hospice, so every Veterans Day, she has 4 or 5 senior facilities, and we recognize the veterans. So I put on my service dress blues. Like one, the very first year we were at one, we probably had about 50 veterans there, and there was a master gunnery sergeant, and he had been on Iwo Jima.
Mhm.
So, and he always would, I mean, for 3 years in a row, 4th year he wasn't there because he had passed. He was in hospice. So, but you know, he was in dress blues. The 3rd year, I don't know what, oh no, the very first year we pinned them on. And I went to him and I go, sir, where can I pin this? And he looks at me, he goes, not on my uniform, put it in my hand. Master Gunny, no problem.
Right, right. I think there's something that sticks with you when you're when you've left the military. You've never really truly left, at least most of the people that I know.
Yeah.
And it's really been amazing listening to your whole career and all of the challenges that you've had. Um, you know, I would like to ask kind of like one final question, unless there's something else you want to cover. But someone's going to listen to this somewhere down the road, whether it's 10 years or 50 years or 100 years from now. And Gary, what I'd really like to know is, what would you like them to take away from this discussion that we've had in kind of this review of your military career?
You know what? Every career I feel, I feel that challenges create um, character. And individuals that don't have any challenges in life think things come too easy. And one thing that, yes, I've had blips in my career. However, by having a goal, becoming a career naval officer, kind of fumbling into being a Navy frogman and SEAL. I mean, that was an example. When I got to Buds, like I said, with Scott Templeton, I'm going to make you pay for being almost an officer. I had 2 other chiefs going through dive phase. And you know what? Hogg and Hubbard, God rest Hubbard's soul, both good guys. I have a lot of respect for those guys. And I was going through dive school. And what happens at Buds is some of the other nations send their sailors to Buds for certain aspects of the training. And they sent one sailor who was also an E3 to Buds. He was a Moroccan, and his name was Mohammed Draif. And I think it was right the first week we get into second phase, and he was there. And Hogg and Hubbard come up to me and they go, Rossi, we got I hate people. That's why I say it so much. I've got a special deal for you. I go, okay, senior chief, what do you got for me? Mohammed Draif? And he goes, yeah. Guess what? Petty Officer Kress or Petty Officer Ireland is no longer your swim buddy. Who might my swim buddy be? And they go, take a guess. Draif? They go, oh my God, you're a smart young man. So I have a new swim buddy who doesn't swim. So we have a 1.5 mile swim every week on a Thursday. They take us up to South North Island Gate or fence. We go in through the surf, go in the water, go through the surf zone, swim 1.5 miles, and come back through the surf. Well, dive phase is probably around January, February. So the surf is kind of hot. He doesn't swim that. And I'm a very good swimmer. So going through the surf zone, I grab him by his horse collar life jacket, pull him through. Well, it's easy because we're going through and it's not so much of a surf.
Mhm.
Coming back, I have to get him and I said, okay, close your mouth and we're going through the surf zone and I'm going to pull you through. And I kid you not, every week I would hear coming back, Rossi, don't make me do this. Rossi, don't make me do this. I go, shut up. Because if you don't graduate, I don't graduate. And I don't intend not graduating. So just shut up and let me pull your push through the surf zone till we get to the beach. After we do that, then we'll go take a shower. Because when you're swim buddies, you're not supposed to be apart.
Mhm.
And you know what? The teams really made me who I am. I mean, Buds was what, 6, 7 months. My time in the teams was 2 years. So all told, from when I got kicked out to when I went to OCS was about 3.5, 4 years. But that 3.5, 4 years was very instrumental in really learning about who I am and what I can do. And those challenges helped me a lot. I mean, there are all kinds of instances. Like there's one other guy, one of the instructors, and at Buds, what happens if you have an operator? Yeah, he goes to Buds as an instructor, then he goes back out and operates. There's some guys that don't operate because they just keep them at Buds, and we don't know how they get through the training. But if they go out and operate, they're going to kill somebody.
Mhm.
And I had one like that. And it's just a sad, but you know what? He got his comeuppance. We were playing flag football, and I played football in college. I know how to hit, and it was a kickoff. And he was on the Buds staff team, and I was on the UDT 11, and we were league champions. And you know what? Sometimes you go, okay, can I make the tackle, or can I just hit somebody? And his name was Junior Baldwin. And I go, this is my opportunity, because if I don't have this opportunity, I'll never have it again. And I just didn't wrap him up. I went down and I hit him with everything I had. And I probably launched him 5 feet off the ground, and he bounced. And it was just, God, yeah, that felt good. But, you know, you got to have challenges, in my opinion. And if you have a goal, you continue to keep that goal in mind to be successful.
To listen to this full story or to hear the stories of other veterans, go to www.veteransarchives.org and click on the Media tab.